Many years ago in the Nut and Fancy project, when I reviewed the Sega AK rifles, I did call them the gold standard. And in a lot of ways, I still feel the same way.
Oh, yeah.
They're produced at the
Yezhevsk
factory in Russia. That's Tactical Doodle helping me out with the pronunciation. It might be right, might be wrong.
It's most likely wrong.
Doesn't matter.
I don't speak Russian.
Still an awesome AK, though. Now, back in that review, we had a lot of requests to review what?
Valmet.
What did they tell us about the Sega?
Valmet. Don't review that thing. Sucks, man. Get a Valmet. Get a Valmet. Oh, have you seen a Valmet? What? I don't know if you've ever heard of this thing. It's called the Valmet. I think it was designed on the moon. It's
I get it.
Way better.
I get it. They wanted a Valmet back then. That's around the 2010 time frame, I think, here in TMP, a lifetime ago. And I, at the time, said, hey, take advantage of the $700 price levels on the Segas imported by Arsenal, the SGL-21, the SGL-31. What did they say then? Not everyone, but some.
They said they were too expensive.
They did.
$750? It's Russian, man.
Dude,
yeah,
5 years ago, I could have bought that for $499.
Yeah. I could get it for 6 bags of rice and a $100 bill.
Anyways, we laughed then. We're really laughing hard because those guns have, what, tripled in cost? Almost tripled.
If you can find them.
If you can find them. So the SGLs are extremely expensive. They're still a fantastic stamped receiver, Russian-produced AK. We stand by that review. Amazing. But in the back of our mind was rolling around, maybe one day, we can get the true gold standard of AKs, the Finnish produced Valmet. And welcome to our tabletop review on just that. Here we are. Not in the bunker, but we're tabletop.
Yeah.
That way you can check out the details on this actually pretty outstanding AK. So those guys were kind of right.
Yeah.
This is one of the better AKs we've seen to date. It is famous. If you know AKs, you know the Valmet. It is storied. And you know what? It has been expensive for a long time. This isn't new. So I looked up on the interweb, TD. I searched around and tried to find a price about 20 years ago. Guess what I come up with? $1,300 to $1,600 for a clean example. 20 years ago on the Valmet. And I think their production ceased. This is an M76 wood. I think the production ceased in 1986. Is that right?
Sheesh.
Maybe I'm wrong on that. And we are not Valmet experts. We're not purporting to be Valmet experts. We're just going to give you our opinions on the gun, a little bit of history, maybe none at all. Features of the gun, how it's shot, and then would we buy it. But it is an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing that it has been expensive for so very long. Let me ask you this, TD. Let's go back to 1999. It's $1,300. You find this exact gun for $1,300 and go back to your mindset then. Granted, you were a little kid then, but pretend you're your age now. Would you buy one for $1,300 then?
Nah. That's
really?
It's a lot of money back then still.
Now, let me give you a little bit of background on that answer, and I would agree with that. I don't think I would either, but we have really come to love the AK product, the AK platform, through TMP, honestly.
Yeah.
Before TMP, we didn't have a lot of exposure to it, but fast forward 14 years of testing a fair amount of AKs, not a ton, but a fair amount. We love the AK platform. We integrate it into our own personal defense systems. We actually do. It is a GTW platform for us. But I would agree with that. Back then, that long ago, $1,300, that was a lot of money.
And back then, an AK at that price, people would kind of go, what? What are you talking about?
Because you're getting Wasser 10s for $325.
Yeah, you can buy 3 of those things for this, and to your average buyer, they would look at it. They wouldn't recognize all the differences at first glance. Like, yeah, it's a little bit different. It's Finnish.
You'd get a Polish Tantal for, I hate to say a price because I don't really know back then, but that's a very solid AK. I haven't seen one of those, by the way, forever.
Hell, actually, I guess that would have been before Norinco's. You can get a Polytech AK.
Yeah.
Those are cheap.
Mac 90s.
Yeah.
That's a good AK variant. And that's what this is. It's an AK variant rifle. It is a product improved AK. This is a platform that the Israelis based their Galil upon, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And I've always liked the Galil. I don't love the Galil in terms of first cool. I'm very lukewarm on it. It's way too heavy. This is actually kind of heavy too. But my friend years ago had 2 Galils, and in the 90s, mid-90s, I was really trying to buy one from him. Mark?
Yeah, I remember that one.
Mark. So he wouldn't sell them to me, and I'm kind of glad he didn't, because I'd probably be still the owner of a Galil.
I don't think the Israelis are owners of the Galil so much anymore, right? Didn't they phase them out a while ago?
They use a lot of the M16, M4 platforms
they
now,
went over
and
to-
the Tavor X95 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And other guns I'm probably not aware of. Let me tell you this, by the way, speaking of the name Mark, it is Mark the TMPer who loaned me this M76 Valmet for tabletop. Round of applause for Mark the TMPer, Patreon member and TMP. Thank you so much. And let me just say this, don't send me your guns.
Yeah, don't do it.
It's only in special circumstances I want y'all's as guns for review, because it is a laborious process for us in receiving them, going down to the gun store, filling out the federal forms, spending $50 to ship it back to his FFL, and on and on.
Actually, I'm gonna let it shoot.
Yeah, only when it's something really eclectic and special will we do that. And when he contacted me in Patreon, I said, Valmet? I didn't hesitate.
We've been looking for a long time.
Since 2010.
It's been on the list for 10 years.
For
and we
10
still
years.
haven't come across one.
And this isn't a gun that I can just roll into gunnies and pull off the rack.
Yeah.
I've never seen a Valmet, especially in this beautiful condition, ever in any gun store. Look at the walnut on this stock. It looks like one of our M1 Garands, the quality of a World War II M1 Garand.
It's great.
And the quality is one of the reasons why I think the Valmet M76 holds such a mystique. It's Finnish. I think that's its own thing. How many Finnish firearms do people have access to?
It's definitely
Not too many.
It's a collective subset, and the guys that collect Finnish stuff tend to know it pretty well. And
There's some
collect
Finnish bolt guns.
They want the breadth from the recaptured Mosins. The Russians made a Mosin. It was captured by the Finns.
Right.
They rebarreled it, and it was recaptured
Right.
by the German. Cool.
But
Expensive.
I think, now you're talking about people who would collect that subset of firearms. I'm sure there's some of those. There's some for every type of gun out there. But I think this gun is so valuable that it keeps going up in value year after year because the AK guy wants it. A guy who owns a standard AK, and that's a Riley Defense, previously reviewed in the background. It's a fantastic high value AK. It performed fabulously for us. TD helped me shoot it, remember? Mm-hmm. Great gun. We have it on the table as a comparison of a normal AK. But I think guys who own something like this have heard for years about the Valmet.
Yeah.
And they're going, this is the gold standard, the real gold standard, not the nut and fancy gold standard of the Sega. The real one, and they just want it. And I think this tabletop review is going to focus on where it should focus, and that is the second cool, in some ways, collectability of the Valmet. If we review it, as we've said, in some 1960s era, semi-automatic rifles, they're not assault rifles. They are the civilian counterparts to those rifles. Then we're going to level a lot of criticisms. And we will still hear. I mean, we're going to mention things. But this is a second cool gun, dudes.
Yeah, just for the sheer enjoyment and fun of it, and this is one of my favorite eras. I love the post-World War II, things were advancing. They weren't advancing uniformly. They got some things right at first. It's experimentation. It's interesting. You still have some wood on them, which is cool. They have soul. I like that.
It's kind of in a way, it represents that transition period, right? Like you're saying, from the 50s to the 60s, where they are using a larger box magazine. They are featuring better ergonomics, pioneered by the AK. Mm-hmm. But they still have some of the throwback wood stock. And granted, this is the civilian counterpart to the R62.
Yeah.
So this is, but it's still very representative of the type. the assault rifle that the Finns, I think, are still using, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so.
And what's it called? The R95 or something?
RK262 or something like that.
The RK95 or something.
The modern version, they have like a product improved version. They're throwing key mod rails on it, or M-lock, and adding like an optics rail, so it looks pretty cool.
But this is that really unique transition period. It is Finnish. That in and of itself is freaking cool.
Yeah.
That is freaking cool. Speaking of which, this is a Finnish fighter from World War II. Any ideas what it is, dudes? I bet you don't know until I tell you. It is an F2A Brewster Buffalo that the Finns flew actually quite successfully in World War II. Quite successfully. What a cool little plane it is,
like
right?
A caricature of a P-47.
It looks like an F4F Wildcat, kind of. And I think it was the predecessor to that plane. This is in 1/72nd scale. Superb detail. It's an easy model. Pretty inexpensive. And it has Finnish insignia on it. How cool is that? Do I have a name on this one? I don't. Sometimes I'll write down the fighter pilot who actually flew that plane. And this is a Russian LA-7, dudes. A favorite of the Russian aces. They actually shot down an Me-262 with this plane. And this is a Russian aces plane. And his name was, I wrote it down here, Major Ahmet. Sultan Air Base, 9th GFAR. LA-7, Lavochkin LA-7. He painted it in red to taunt the enemy. It is basically a middle finger.
It's cool.
I have these two planes on the table because here we have a Russian firearm, a Finnish firearm.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a long history between those two countries, a long-standing animosity between the two countries, and friction, shall we say.
Yeah, I don't know if you've met any Finns, but if you meet them in real life, they're kind of weird.
Are they?
Yeah. I mean, I like them.
I'm sure I have. I don't remember that right off. I don't doubt that at all. I do think they have an outstanding reputation as being very fierce fighters.
Yeah.
They're pretty badass on the battlefield. They don't give up. They're tactically smart, and they can adapt in cold weather. They don't care. For that matter, neither do the Russians. They're pretty good with that, too. Circling back to the gun, this was designed for cold weather use. True or false?
Totally.
Yeah, so the Valmet cold weather gun, product improved, AK variant, there are some differences though. There are some differences. Short couple points on philosophy of use. TD, what would you use this gun for, a Valmet M76 in this beautiful condition, Mark's gun? I mean, holy cow. It was brand new, by the way, when we got it.
It's awesome.
Brand new. What would you use it for?
Today?
Right now. You buy it, you go out, let's say you spend $3,000 on this gun. Would you use it as your go-to-war gun?
It's a wall hanger and an investment. And
Right.
I sit and I take pictures and I share it with other Valmet enthusiasts.
Yeah.
And we tell, that's awesome, dude. It is very awesome. And then I fondle it while I watch Saving Private Ryan.
That is an accurate answer because that's what guys are going to do. In fact, I highly doubt that a lot of M76 owners are going out and popping rounds unless they got it used and it already has a lot of wear and tear on it.
If it's got mileage on it, rock on.
So when Mark gave us this gun on loan, he said, please take care of it, and we have. And you're going to see an inset video. We're using like a blue rag to cradle the wood stock. We did not shoot it on barricades so as not to mark up. Even though it's a plastic handguard, we did the absolute best we could to preserve it. The only thing we cannot prevent is, of course, brass marring on the top cover. So there is that mark. But other than that, we took good care of it. There might be a slight rub mark here or there. I'm letting the serial number show because this shows this is a TMP Valmet. Who knows? Who knows where the gun ends up? It's kind of cool. Philosophy of use, then, you're absolutely right. It's a collectible piece. If you have it in your AK collection and your gun friends come over, I think they're going to go bonkers over it.
If you have one that's used, maybe you bought one in the 90s. Or maybe your, dad bought one and threw it in the closet and now you're fine. Oh, dude, it's already shot. That's a pretty cool running gun.
It is.
It's cool.
Again, if you're willing to shoot it. And that's an interesting point, too. If you did buy this in the 90s, with the values where they are right now, I bet a lot of guys would be tempted to sell.
Yeah.
Because if you bought it for, let's say, $700 back in the early 90s, and now you could get $3,000...
Yeah.
That's a good return on investment.
This is one of the cheaper Valmet variants from what I'm seeing. You get
Well, not in
early,
this
early
condition.
ones,
This condition's gorgeous.
but some of the early, like the tube stocks and stuff, doesn't go up to $6,000.
Yeah.
Dudes.
There were variants. This is a wood version of the M76. They did have a folder that was a 76F. They had a plastic version. I guess I had a plastic stock. I'm not really sure. That's an M76P. And again, we're not the experts on Valmet. There's a forum, no doubt, where you could go and find out about all this stuff. But this would be my favorite version. Albeit, I do have one reservation on this. Caliber. Let me ask TD. Do you like the 5.56 caliber of this
Don't
gun?
do this to me.
Just say real quick, yes or no.
It's one of my more controversial opinions, but I feel 5.56 in an AK platform is against the natural order.
I would agree with that, actually. And we do have an AK, Zastava. Remember the short one? That's in 5.56.
Oh, yeah, the NPAT pistol.
Yeah, and we tried to get that in 7.6239. We couldn't, and you and I had that discussion. We're like, God, that really bugs us that it's in 5.56.
But it takes Stanag.
True.
And that makes me forgive a lot more because
Okay.
it's not a specialized ecosystem. It's, you just throw it in, whoop-de-doo.
The point is, we would much prefer an M76. This is just an opinion. Actually, this whole video is an opinion. A dumb one at that, no doubt. We'd prefer it in 7.6239. We would. That's what the Finns chambered it in forever. Why? Because if they ever went to war against the Russians, they would capture Russian stockpiles of 7.6239. They were smart, and they would just throw it in their guns. That's pretty smart, actually.
Yeah.
7.6239 would be our preferred chambering, but just doing some minor clicking around on the internet, it looks like the 223 versions, if, that's a big if, you can find them, are more prevalent. Which means, I don't know how many came in that chambering or what.
Yeah, it seemed to be their volume seller. Although the best caliber they ever made it in was 222 French, but
if you're like hard over to get a Valmet M76 and you found it in 223,
rock on.
buy it. Because don't hesitate. Just because it's maybe not the gold chambering that you'd want. And I think Mark told me that too. He's like, I really want it in 7.62. I couldn't find it. But I had for him, he said he got a really good deal on this. And I was like, that's a good purchase. He will absolutely keep the value he spent in this gun. It will go up in value. It's a great investment. Maybe we kind of mentioned that at some philosophy of use. I would not use this as a go-to-war gun. I think it's way too heavy for that. With a 30-round mag, it's 8 pounds, 15 ounces, and it doesn't even have a freaking optics rail on it. No, thank you.
They must have buff forearms.
But here we go, bouncing into modern standards, applying to a 1960s era combat rifle. And we're not really focusing on that. We're mentioning it like I said we do. That's it. I wouldn't use it as a go-to-war gun. Now, if you're in the comments, you go, well, my Valmet is my go-to-war gun. Rock on.
Cool.
Rock on. It's totally capable. I'm just saying in the modern world, there's a lot better options. And you'd be better off preserving that piece and making some money off of it.
Yeah.
And then turning that $3,000, this is theoretical, of course, that $3,000 into 4 other rifles plus ammunition.
If you're just looking at function, or it's, a nice, the pearl of your collection.
Okay, let me ask you this. So we have shot this a fair amount. We have a really solid opinion on it. We have plenty of data. We'll get to that. But knowing what you know about this rifle, knowing what you know about this rifle, which is much less expensive, is this functionally inferior to that rifle?
By a very small percentage, yeah.
How so?
Sights.
Well
I
said.
can engage
Well said.
the crap with these sights compared to those ones.
So one of the advantages, kind of going into the features portion of the review, of the Valmet series is you have a very long sight radius. Boom.
Radical.
Forward mounted right here, and the rear sight is all the way back on the top cover.
Excellent.
That's pretty cool. And you have the very standard short sight radius on this AK right here, from here to here. Almost double. It's almost double the sight radius. Now, we have this folded down in night mode. We'll talk about that here in a second. What were you going to say?
I just like the peep sight on this, too. It is so much easier to see your target at range compared to that. That blocks off half what you're looking at. I've
never been a fan of AK sights as they come. Almost always, I'll put a thinner front sight post in it. It has an optics rail, often, not on this Riley Defense, but often I'll put some type of optic on it. We'll do a red dot, maybe a 2 to 7 scope, maybe a 1 to 6 scope, and deal with its It's lack ergonomics because you're going to add weight. It's a higher cheek weld. All the crap we've talked about. But getting back to your answer, by a slight margin, this is better, functionally speaking. In reliability, same.
Yeah.
In durability, I would say same.
Yeah.
Now, Valmet guys say, no way, man, it's going to be a lot better. I don't buy that. I think a well-made stamped receiver AK will last. It will outlast us.
That's the problem because the Valmet is pretty much a premium AK no matter what. And when you compare it to the AKs as a whole, maybe it's a cheaper one, maybe it's a nicer one. You don't know exactly how well built that AK is.
I'm just talking about reliability and durability right here, not necessarily accuracy.
No, I'm talking reliability because Valmet put this together well. They did a good job.
Tighter tolerances, very nice construction on the Valmet. I mean, when you look at this thing and examine it, it looks Finnish.
Yeah.
It looks really high-end European. I'm pretty impressed with the stamped receiver. Thicker than most. The riveting is absolutely awesome. We don't need any XY stampings on it because it's already pretty strong. We don't need any dimples on the magazine because it has its own proprietary magazine system that doesn't rock around very much. Less than a lot of AKs. Less than a lot of AKs. The wood I mentioned already, it's fantastic. Super high quality. I see no flaws in the wood at all. The fit and finish on it, pretty awesome. How do you feel about the parkerization on this
Love
thing?
it. I wish everything was still parkerized.
That's one thing I liked about the Tantals, is that they were parkerized, meaning that they can hold oil and that it will be more rust resistant. So super high quality, more reliable, more durable. That's a debate probably that I'll save for the AK forums.
Yeah.
From what I know now, I would say not really. On to a more thorough features review. Talked about the wood already. How about this? A plastic butt plate. It's not metal, like a lot of AK variants.
Metal would be colder, man.
How about rubber?
What's the point of rubber? It weighs more than this, and it would be rock hard in the cold.
That's correct.
You probably would not like it.
Cool. There's your sling attachment on this version of the Valmet. Pistol grip is bigger than a normal Warsaw Pact, it seems to me. I didn't really measure it, but it seems like it has more real estate on it.
Yeah, it's a lot chunkier.
No finger grooves on it. Pretty basic. I wouldn't say it's a trick at all, but I found it comfortable in shooting. As I did the stock, I forgot to mention this, it measures 10 inches in length, so I think that's like NATO length.
Yeah, it really felt longer than a short little...
You had a hard time snugging up to it. You liked a short length of pull.
I love them
This one, that one in the background with the laminated wood, standard of AKs, this is a 9-inch and I think like 3/8 inch length stock. Myself, 6'3", I like the longer length. Maybe it's different in different variations of the Valmet. Who knows? Trigger is absolutely awesome.
It's fantastic.
It feels like an aftermarket trigger. We were shooting this thing and we're like, is this aftermarket? Nope. Came with a gun.
And when you open it up and look at what goes into that trigger, it mystified me a bit of how they got that level of performance out of what looks like any other one.
Right. And as we roll along here, we'll show you the gun taken apart. We're not going to do it here on table because we don't really have room for one and we don't have time for the other. But yeah, the inside's very impressive. Very unique in some ways. It is an AK variant. It's different than an AK. The gas block is different, right? It's longer. It's dovetailed into the front trunnion right here. And I think that isolates the harmonics of the barrel too, TD.
Yeah.
So you should get better accuracy versus a standard AK rifle. Also, this is much easier than that rifle up there for field stripping.
Rad.
I love that. Trigger, we didn't pull it. I'm not going to give you a weight. It doesn't really matter. I'll just say that the trigger is perfect. I would never replace this trigger. Of course, on a Valmet, would you replace anything? No. It's a collectible. It is what it is. You're just going to leave it as is. Magazine paddle, perfection. Rocking the magazine in is a little bit different than an AK. It seems like it goes in shallower to me.
Yeah,
we kept going in deeper and it didn't work.
Yeah, you can't just jam it in. You got to use that lip and kind of hook it.
Yeah, that's a 20 round in there. That is an M76 magazine with the 3 bumps. Show them the bumps. I think the M71 mag has 1 bump. These are heavy mags. They're 10 ounces a piece. at least for a 30 rounder, and they are uber expensive and very hard to find. So if you're going to look for a Valmet and you want real mags, you might be paying what? Up to
about 300 for that is
300
seems to be
bucks
the
per. Isn't that-
average
ugh.
asking price.
There are aftermarket mags. They are much more affordable. Show them that one.
These are what, probably about 40 bucks or so.
We found this works pretty good. I think we did have one stoppage in one round.
Yeah.
But they're good. They're lightweight. They're made by Orlite. And is that a steel tab in there? I think it is.
Yeah.
So that has a steel tab. So good option, really. There is some internet information out there that you can adapt, or I should say modify, a Bulgarian Circle 10 mag, waffle pattern mag, to work with the Valmets, right?
Yep. Sounds like you got to do some math, though. You can't just cut something or
It's a project.
wedge it out. It's not a 5-second Dremel deal.
It's a project. So I like this. The trigger guard's cool. Stamped trigger guard. Nice big protective wing on the mag. Big magazine paddle. All that's really good.
It comes
we love
out
that.
to the right side so you can hit it with your index finger.
Oh yeah,
Which I
that's
thought
cool.
was
I forgot
quite
to mention that.
Nifty.
Very cool. On this side, standard AK stuff. So standard safety on the AK. There's no notch for the charging handle.
Whatever.
You know, it was designed. Well, the R72 was designed in '62. The M76, of course, came out later. Whatever. That's cool. Look at the freaking rivets, how big they are.
It's awesome.
I didn't measure the thickness of the stamped receiver. Maybe I should have. But again, quality, the trunnion quality. Longer gas system in the M76. A little bit different gas piston than a normal AK rifle. And again, looking inside, struck with the quality. Is it like a lot better than the best AKs out there? Again, I'm not the end-all expert, but I would say not really. It's about the same. You know, I see chromed stuff in there.
I don't know how you would be able to make like an arrestingly exceptional AK where you would crack it open and go, dude,
Yeah.
whoa.
So, in some ways, I think the Valmet is slightly overrated as far as its first cool.
Yeah.
So, remember, the reputation of this gun got started a long time ago, in the 1980s. And one reason it took on such a mystique and was so desirable against guys who wanted AKs is because they were so hard to find. And this is going back a long time, not just in the last 10 years. And so you get this legend that starts, and gold standards repeated over and over again. And we're saying it is an outstanding AK. What we're not saying is that it is the best AK in the world. I ain't saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying for its era, it's a fantastic AK. First cool, there are several other AKs that would match its performance. We've tested some. The Sega would be one of them.
Yeah.
And I'm talking accuracy as well. Speaking of which, here's the sights again. TD mentioned them. We talked about the sight radius already. This is the flip down night sight right here. So you just rotate that all the way. There are supposedly 2 tritium dots here. You can see them right here. By the time you guys get your gun, it will be so old that I doubt the tritium will be very bright at all. I find that tritium after about 7 years is very dim. Most of the pistol sights are warranted from 10 to 12 years. And it is what it is. It's still a cool feature.
Yeah.
Cool second cool feature. I forgot to fully test these when we were shooting the Valmet, but it's very coarse. I mean, you do have a blade here. This screw right here will adjust your elevation. That's really a nice touch for the Valmet M76. And let's take a close look at this sight right here. That is a fat freaking front sight.
Both the front sight posts are quite thick.
Yeah, it has an AK style of sight picture overall, and I'm talking even without the night sights. We love that. So it's a diopter system. You have a circle in a circle. Very fantastic. That with the longer sight radius makes the sight picture excellent. Strangely though, this rear aperture is really tiny.
Yeah.
I mean, for accuracy, it would seem, okay, that makes a lot of sense, but then you have this freaking front sight blade that's about 1 foot wide. It was a weird combination. It gave a good sight picture, but I don't think it gave really good preciseness at all.
Yeah, I'm a little curious as to why they would do such a thick front sight when it's completely sheltered.
Completely protected.
It's not going to get snapped off.
The Valmet guys will say because it's overbuilt. They just did everything, you know, to the nines. And that's a fair answer. You have windage adjustment up front, elevation adjustment at the rear. So really the sights are way superior than a regular AK.
Way better.
Way better. I think the gas tube is too. I love the whole gas tube arrangement. It's very cool. The handguard is about like this one as far as real estate. It's non-heat shielded in this version. It's plastic. What do you think about heat coming through when you shot it?
We were shooting in the cold, so it was kind of nice.
But you remarked how hot it was getting. So it got plenty hot. Kind of strange that it's not heat shielded at all. But again, this is an older designed rifle, whatever. The flash hider is a noteworthy feature. So it's designed to blow wire in half. That's why it's three-pronged. So you supposedly put wire in there, crank off around, and lo and behold, you're through a fence. For lighter grade wire, you can stab it with your three-prong flash hider and just twist it and pop it.
Cool.
Go ahead and do that with your collectible Valmet.
Yeah.
And see what happens to the value. So you see a three-prong flash hider all jacked up because the guy was testing that feature.
Yeah, I was using it on my chicken wire.
But that's what it was designed for, again, in the R72. Your bayonet lug is right here. An interesting thing I noticed about this pronged flash hider is it didn't twang at all. We had no tuning fork vibration. You know those other ones we've shot over the years and they go doing, doing, doing? Apparently you can make a three-prong flash hider and not have it go off like that. And maybe it has to do with the fitment to the barrel. So you can see how that's roll pinned on, really solid to the barrel. A downside to first cool of the Valmet is you're pretty much stuck with that flash suppressor.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's some information there of guys that have taken it off and put something on, but again, for a collectible rifle like that, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
You're looking at your muzzle device and you are stuck with it forever. Standard charging handle right here. And I think that's basic features. It is an AK variant. There are some differences, like we've said. And on to how it's shot. Tactical Doodle. It's pretty cool. How about versus another AK? Any impressions versus, let's just say, the Riley Defense? And guys, don't get hung over that we're showing a Riley Defense. It's a different category altogether. It's just one we have in inventory.
That's the closest we have around a bare bones
that we haven't modified.
Wood AK with nothing new or funky on it.
So we like the wood stock. It represents the field of value AKs, really.
Yeah.
How about the shooting dynamics? Did you think it was smooth?
Yeah.
Did you love the trigger?
Yep.
Did you love the accuracy?
I couldn't get super great with it.
Why?
I was connecting with the plate.
How about, we're going to show you paper here in a second, but driving to accuracy, this is a first cool observation is all. It gets to the thickness of the front sight. Yeah. So the thickness of the front sight is very coarse, great sight picture, but the whole time I'm shooting is like, man, if I could put a really thin front sight on this, I would be home free. I could be getting some really good groups. It's a combat thickness of front sight. I don't see a way to easily change it out. Maybe there is one way. I wouldn't do it. That's what we're saying. You don't have an optics rail on it, of course, so you can't put a scope on it. So my impressions, shooting smoothness was fantastic. Really smooth shooting AK. I love the trigger with all the round shot, which, by the way, were brass. Did we shoot steel through it? I don't think we did, because we didn't want to run steel through Mark's AK. Or his Valmet. So we didn't run steel through your gun, Mark, so you're good to go. It was 100%.
Yep.
And then on to our accuracy. Go and throw your target up. He actually did a really good group with it. I thought it was awesome. There's TD's target. This is at 50 yards. He was adjusting for his point of aim.
Yeah, the front sight post filled up from here to here. So I was just seeing half that orange circle and blocking off the rest and seeing what you gonna get.
Which I've always said about AKs, I think it's funny when guys say, well, yeah, I can shoot such and such groups out to 400 meters. And I'm like, how do you do it with a really thick front sight post? This AK included. So this has a standard front sight post on it, this Riley. We didn't replace that one, but generally I'll put a thinner front sight on it. So that was a pretty good group, I thought. This was my first shots with it. So 50 yards.
Which is fine accuracy for the era.
This is my best group, and with my observations written down on the Valmet M76. 50 yards, iron, 25 degrees, it was cold. In the desert, so we call that operational here in TMP. Not at a concrete bench, not at the range. We're dealing with wind, cold, and being tired. We shot for 10 hours that day. True or false?
Yep, it's frigid.
Human factors involved, that's pretty damn good for an AK.
It made me laugh when we saw the groups, though, because back in the day, the comments, if you believe people, the Valmet was like this semi-precision rifle. So, yeah, I don't know why you're worried about accuracy. My Valmet, it can plug 1/4-inch holes at 100 yards.
Yeah, I don't see that. This is at 50 yards, so if we were to double this at 100 yards, what are we looking at? A 3-inch group?
Yeah.
Which, guess what, is great for an AK.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say great, but really good.
Yeah.
That's about what this could do. This is about 3 to 4 inches at 100 yards. My problem as a shooter is doing that with that front sight. It'd be really tough. Here's another thing about the Valmet that's interesting. Since they did mount the rear sight on the rear top cover, you are introducing a variance every time you take the gun down to clean it or lube it.
Sweet.
And there is a variance. Don't kid yourself. We've been working with top cover sights on AKs for a very long time, about 10 years. We use tech sights on an SKS and on another AK. We love them. But every time we take it off, there is a variance introduced. With iron sights is a huge deal. Not really. But if you have, I've had top mounted optics on another AK, that one we talked about.
Yeah.
Huge variance. The thing you have going for a Valmet is it is tighter tolerances. This top cover fits really tight, tighter than a regular AK, and so it is minimized, but don't kid yourself, there is a variance being introduced. And we didn't test this, by the way, because we wanted to minimize wear and tear on this. We didn't adjust the sights because I didn't want to put a screwdriver in his front sight blade and mar it up. That's how collectible this is. Because I was like, well, I could drift it. I'm like, why? Why? Just get a group, and that's all these guys need to see. For instance, the variance could be if you take your top cover off, maybe you have it zeroed right here at 50 yards. As soon as you put it back, you're right here. That's the kind of variance I think you could expect in a Valmet. I would still classify this as really good AK accuracy.
Yeah.
And I would be really curious to see if a 7.62 Valmet would shoot any differently.
I think they have them in 308 too.
They did.
I want to say
Absolutely.
the 308s take Galil mags.
They
or something
do.
like that.
Good
I think
point.
That's part of why they're so super desirable.
Right. So I'll call it really good accuracy. Mind-blowing accuracy. Hard to say because we really need a scope to test that.
Yeah.
What would really be interesting if somehow you had a scoped Valmet and you bench rested it at a range on concrete, controlled conditions, minimized human factors, really good ammo, and see if it gets MOA.
Yeah.
I suspect it might. Because you have minimized harmonics here. You have a hammer forged barrel. No chrome lining, by the way. No chrome lining in the Finn produced M76, which is kind of strange with the Finnish winners being what they are. Whatever, but maybe it does MOA. We couldn't test that though.
I'd believe it.
Couldn't test it. The watch for the review, by the way, is an Ament Berlin with a hands mod. Awesome. What are you wearing?
Timex.
This is a Waterbury traditional with a Nut and Fancy hands mod, and check this out.
About
Indiglo. So that is a Gundam decal on that one. Gun guys are like going, who cares about watches? I'm just here for the AK review. Oh, the knife is the awesome Honey Badger in large. Link below. Love this knife. I have reviewed it. It's posted on Patreon. You should always join Patreon because all the videos post first. For that alone, you should join. They're always ad-free, at least for the first week or so. And maybe for much longer, depending on when I release it to the general YouTube crowd. What guns do we have on table, TD? The pistols.
Oh, yeah.
Show him that one.
Him from where I am.
Oh, yeah, he has a light right in his face. That is our Russian CZ75. That has gone up in value. You guys should know all about this gun. Not a real Russian CZ75.
Yeah.
There never was such a thing as far as I know. No, this was the commemorative one they produced.
Fun collector edition.
And TD color-filled parts of it. And the serial number on this is CCP775. You've seen it before. Totally awesome. So that's representing the Russian side of the house. And then we have a Zastava M70A. Reviewed many years ago. We just love it. Just kind of some Cold War era guns for the review.
I would recommend buying the M70 if you come across one.
Absolutely.
It's a very charming gun.
Is fantastic. It shoots accurate, reliable. Tokarev variation. And then we go on to the sad part when we end the video. Would we buy a Valmet M76? I'm going to give you a price level to answer. $2,000. Would you buy it?
No.
I wouldn't either. Then it goes to say that for anything higher than $2,000, you absolutely wouldn't. How about $1,500?
It really depends on how much of my collection I've already got. Because I like stuff from the era.
Just know what you know right now.
Yeah.
You're in TMP, we buy it for a criminal. I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't.
For $1,000, would you?
Nah.
I wouldn't either.
I don't.
That may shock you guys because you're probably saying you're insane because you just talked about the investment value. Fair point. If you're going to criticize that decision we just said on terms of investment, you're absolutely right. I can't argue with it. But I don't use guns for investment. I don't. I use other vehicles for investment. I really love the second cool factor of the Valmet. It is awesome. It's just that I've never really lusted after one.
That's my thing. Because I love, like, I would love a South African fowl or a Belgian fowl or something like that. It has
So you'd rather have that?
Yeah. Stuff like a fowl or a G3 or, you know, some of the more known old school battle rifle type stuff. I don't have much of a connection to the Finnish stuff. Mm-hmm. If I started collecting Finnish Mosins, then I guarantee I'd start going down the rabbit hole of, well, I want to have the entire thing. But
yeah,
as it stands, having to hunt down mags and having
hunt
that
down
guilt
mags
every time I shoot.
Exactly. That you have a gun like this and you're putting, you know, brass on its top cover every time you shoot. For me, in my 2 cents, and that's all it is 2 cents, if you have a Valmet, I think you should shoot it. Life is too short just to collect. Shoot and enjoy it. If you want to put it in your GTW system, I say go for it. It's damn heavy. 8 pounds, 15 ounces. By the way, that's with a 30-round steel. It's going to be lighter if you put that polymer aftermarket, the Orlite in it. Naked, the gun is still heavy. It's 8 pounds, 6 ounces. For a stamped receiver, in this variation, there are milled versions, but a stamped receiver, Valmet M76, that's very heavy. This one's going to be much lighter, and it has an optics rail. Same capabilities in my book. It just depends what you want. Just depends.
I'd be curious to see who's really driving the market. I would almost suspect it's kind of like cars.
Yeah.
You see cars that guys wanted when they were in high school and, you know, they're young and they, dude, I would love to get a Judge. Couldn't afford one. Now that they're at a point in their life when they can, the prices rise real. I would love to know how many guys used to lust after a Valmet and made do with their Polish Tantal.
You'll see them in comments. You'll see guys in comments that are saying, that is my dream AK. I know it's heavy. I don't freaking care. It's made in Finland. I love its history. I like that it's the basis of the Galil. I love how it's 100% reliable. It's the best AK in the world. And there is an argument to be made for that. We're not saying that that is untrue. But it's dang expensive. But if you throw out the second cool flag and you go, the Valmet is what makes me happy, and when I go to sleep at night, I have a grin on my face, we're going to give you 2 thumbs up.
I totally get that.
Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Thank you, Mark, for the loaner. We sure appreciate it. Now we have a Valmet in the AK playlist.
Finally.
Nut and Fancy Project. A lot more gun reviews, knife reviews, aircraft reviews. Kind of coming your way. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell. For now, YouTube's still working, so is Patreon for now. Join Patreon or whatever other donation service we may use in the future. It's a hell of a lot of work, and we bought all the ammo that we used in this Valmet, as we always do. We are unsponsored except by you. Over and out.